Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode, the second of the day of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. It is hard to believe, but it has been almost 9 months. May 5th and 6th will be 9 months to the day since this Maryland mother of five, Rachel Morin, first went missing, and then sadly her body was found near a trail on the Monpont Trail in Maryland. The Harford County Sheriff has called Rachel Morin's death the result of a quote-unquote violent homicide. We have tried to stay on this case. We welcome back in a moment. I'll formally introduce everyone, but the father of Rachel's oldest child, Faye, and that would be Matt McMahon. You know, I took a quick look in between doing the other 10 million things today, and there have not been a lot of media reports about this case. And sadly, that is the awful truth when it comes to media. A case is in the spotlight, it loses steam, and then the headlines disappear. And that is what's happening here. I've been in close contact with Matt this whole time, with the Geoprofiler, Doug MacGregor, and Tim Pappa, and, promise him we get him back on. And that's what this is about. I just want to take a moment, too, to say, I always say best guest, but better community. In this case, the best guests are part of the better community. It's amazing to know that both Tim Pappa and the Geoprofiler are putting in their own time, energy, and effort. Doug lives in Ottawa, Canada, and drove back down to Maryland this past weekend to help out the Morin family and Matt McMahon. So that doesn't say something about his character. I don't know what does. But to formally introduce everyone, lower left-hand side with the blue and black headset is Matthew McMahon, the father of Rachel's oldest child, who is Faye, who recently turned 18 years old. To the right of him is Doug MacGregor, better known as the Geoprofiler. He's a forensic behavioral analyst and a consultant specializing in geographic profiling as well as linkage analysis for violent crime and missing persons. And he's trying to link all that up in real time with this case. And then top right, you've got Tim Pappa. He is a certified former profiler with the FBI's BAU, very famous unit, the Behavioral Analysis Unit. He joined the FBI in 2008 as a special agent, serving nearly 16 years in various investigative roles. And he, too, has been working closely with the Morins and Matt McMahon. And Tim, you still have your YouTube channel, I assume, at storytellers.design?
That's right.
Storytellers.design. So please give them a like there and subscribe. And I know more people are going to roll in here. And this is, in fact, a great lineup here, as Merds70 says. Matt McMahon, obvious first question. How are you doing nearly 9 months later? How's the family holding up?
I was getting really exhausted there for a while. Needed to take a step back and just breathe, because over the months, it really wears you down. I'm feeling a little bit better now that I've stepped back a little bit to regroup. I always get asked about the family, so I assume the kids. That's actually a tough one. I've given different answers at different times throughout the course of all of this happening. And I feel like immediately after this happened, the kids were doing terrible. And then it almost seemed like they were doing better. But now it almost feels like they're on a downward trend again, or at least one of them in particular, as the effects of losing their mother in this way is really starting to hit them, and they're starting to really feel it. And it's, when this happens to a kid, immediately that they understand the horror of losing their mother. I know Rachel's son, 10-year-old son, had said, what am I going to do without a mother? But now I think he's really feeling the impact of that. Speaking with his father just a couple days ago, and he was telling me that he's quite distressed, not just losing his mother, but complaining that he gets to see his siblings maybe once a month. So his, all of their worlds are kind of falling apart, despite the fact that is a support structure there. And I think that's how it's going to go from this point forward. Is it's going to go in waves as they feel the effects of everything.
Yeah, someone just said my heart breaks for you and the kids. That's Samantha Marlman. Usually when I pull up a comment, it should lift Matt above the comment. Let's give it a second here. But Tim Pappa, you were an FBI special agent, and I know you've probably had plenty of conversations with families. Does it surprise you at all that Matt says, there's kind of been it's been a roller coaster ride? It was obviously down for a long time, then the spirits were lifted, and now they're kind of slinking back into a dejected state here.
I mean, it doesn't, Joel, doesn't totally surprise me, but one major difference between my experience in the BAU is our time with families and victims was very brief, right? We'd work on a case from afar. We'd analyze from afar. We might do interviews. We might interact with them, but never for this period of time. So to actually see over a period of time the different things members of this family have been going through, from what I've heard from them, it's a different perspective for sure. When I look at, what research says about how emotions and affect impact us and stress impacts us, all of that makes sense to me. But to hear from someone who's going through it over a long period of time is a very different thing.
This is one thing that kind of drives me crazy about the media, but there's no way around it, is, like I said, I just did a quick Google search, almost nothing in recent days or weeks. If there was a break in this case, everyone will be covering it. All the media outlets will be back on it, and then they'll be gone again. But I'm just hoping that being consistent here is a benefit in some way. We were getting some, believe it or not, some tips. We were helping or doing shows on Sebastian Rogers, and the PI who's helping the family there told us she got a tip or two off of Surviving the Survivor. So you never know. And Annie Oakley here says it well. Grief is a marathon, not a 50-yard dash. The waves of grief will come less often and be less brutal. Love to you all, from Annie Oakley. Obviously, poignant words, easier said than done. And then Rachel's color is orange, therefore the orange hearts. Doug MacGregor, you're a soft-spoken man, serious about what you do. What inspired you to drive from Ottawa, Canada, back again to Maryland this weekend? How long a drive is that?
It's about 7 hours. Honestly, what inspired me was Matt and all the efforts that he's put into conducting his own investigation. I'm sure he's in communication with law enforcement, but he's been doing a lot of work on his own. He's been out canvassing, as I'm sure he'll get into some detail on. And he started to explain to me some of the other elements of this whole Mon Pa Trail area, the surrounding environment. And I felt that I needed to see that for myself as well. And so Matt and I could go over that, and which is what we did. It's his efforts that really brought me back down.
And Matt, I mean, is it surreal that you've got these guys coming to help you? I know they're doing a pro bono. Does it still give you, does it give you a hope that through all this horror, at least you've got these guys next to you?
Yeah, I've never lost hope. I feel like I can't lose hope, because then I'm worried that then I'll fall apart. But it really does blow me away, the level of support both of these gentlemen have given me, Rachel's family, Rachel, her children. And I know you always talk about how you have the best guests, but these guests in particular, they're not just experts that are talking about a case, like you were saying, that they're getting boots on the ground and they're coming up to help. I mean, Doug has driven down from Canada twice, and I think Tim's driven up maybe like 5 times. So it's phenomenal the support both of these gentlemen are giving me, and they're helping me to maintain the strength to keep doing it, because they're supporting me not just in my quest, but like they're literally holding me up.
And Sarah Adams says, you cannot give up hope. You are so right, sir. Hope is the one thing that you have to maintain a sense of. So, Matt, I'm going to have you lead us through a lot of this, and obviously Doug and Tim, but we've got some video. First thing here is obviously this is the most recent poster here. Just walk us through the poster. Has stuff changed on this, Matt?
Yes, this is actually a poster that I created with some feedback from Tim. I did bounce it off of him to get some ideas. So these are the 2 sketches that were provided by witness accounts. The red hat from the hat that was knocked off the guy's head in LA home. But the main difference with this is that I added a section adding a little bit more details about the suspect. And I even go into more depth of these details in one of the videos that Tim just recently filmed. But I'm talking about how this attack happened shortly after 7 o'clock. So I'm trying to give a more defined time frame so that hopefully people might, it might jog their memory. And in this flyer, I'm not very specific, but I say that he's not wearing appropriate clothing for the weather or trail-related activities. Weather on that day was, well, at that time at 7 o'clock was about 85 degrees. And I did look up the humidity just to see it was like 55 percent humidity. So that's not appropriate attire for that weather and, being on a trail. He was wearing boots, jeans, a hoodie, sunglasses, clearly trying to obscure his identity, and he wasn't on the trail. So that's why I'm trying to give out these details, because we're approaching 9 months. People's memories are going to fade. Maybe people are going to move. So that's the main difference in that flyer.
Yeah. And Tim, that's got to be a red flag coming from a profiling unit, hot, humid summer day, guys in boots, jeans, like Matt just said, right?
No, of course. I mean, I think it's been a major issue with some of the commentary in public about this case that people are making presumptions about what kind of person this killer is, but ultimately you need to pay close attention to those kind of behavioral artifacts, not just for witnesses to recall things they saw that felt odd at the time, but maybe they just kind of stored it in the back of their memory, but also just what should we expect to see or not expect to see from probably a killer that does not have a lot of experience or may not have been planning this up into that moment, but in small periods of time. So those kind of artifacts are definitely very important. And like Doug has talked about as well, like Matt's approach to this, his level of commitment and attention to these details, I think we both agree are very significant and probably some of the most important details for people that might have information on this.
Since this print is small, we've got time. I'm going to read this. The suspect shown in these sketches and photos may have been seen lurking in the woods adjacent to the Monpaw Heritage Trail in the days and weeks leading up to the August 5th, 2023 attack that took place shortly after 7 p.m. Most likely, the man was not wearing appropriate clothing for the warm weather or trail-related activities. If you know a man who looks similar to the suspect or saw someone in the vicinity of the trail that matches the photos, sketches, or description, please contact the Harford County Sheriff's Office, and the number here, 410-836-7788. For those listening, 410-836-7788, or via email, rmtips@harfordsheriff.org, rmtips@harfordsheriff.org. Matt, I'm just curious, since you said you made this flyer, do you ever hear from investigators? Are they okay with it? Do you have to clear it with them when you do something like this?
I don't have to clear it. I did send this to the Harford County Sheriff's Department. I made it clear that I was not asking for their approval because I don't want them to be caught up in something like that. But I did give them the opportunity to object to anything on this, and they did not object to anything that was on this flyer, because I want to push the envelope to give the public as much information as possible to identify the suspect, but I don't want to push it so far to where I'm interfering with the investigation. So they did not say I should not put this out.
And Jerry Michael, I'm just not pulling up the comments as to not cut Matt's head off here. Where is the flyer being posted? I know Matt will send me this updated flyer. I'll tweet it out at Podcast STS and on Instagram at Surviving the Survivor, and then you should all share. But how would you like people to distribute this flyer?
Actually, I forgot to send you that link, but I did make a link to a shared box that I will keep up, for forever. But it's tinyurl.com/ Rachel Morin flyers. It's plural, and that will bring you to a PDF that is bilingual for this, and an English image and a Spanish image, just in case you want to post the images to social media. It's a little bit easier than a PDF.
And there's the one in Espanol. But are you physically going and putting these up in the neighborhood still?
Yes, I am putting these in one particular neighborhood. It's due east of the attack location. There's a neighborhood where the center of the neighborhood is within that half-mile radius.
So I'm going to put this. Explain it, Matt. I'm sorry, but explain the map. This is the map that we were going to bring up. Just explain what we're looking at here.
Sure. So this is a map that I created that I'm using to track some data. Some of the data that I'm tracking I've removed for this just for public consumption. But the round circle near the center and to the left is where Rachel was attacked and removed from the trail. The red line going underneath the roads is the tunnel where the suspect took Rachel and where Rachel was found. The green line is the Monpa Trail, where the trail that Rachel was traveling on that day. At the top, you can see the yellow X. That's where Rachel parked. There's another side trail that is a yellow squiggle line that goes up to another parking lot that's not used very much. The blue line that comes off of the yellow line is an unused and unmarked trail that you would walk past and not even notice unless you knew that it was there. But once you're walking on it, you can clearly see it. And there is a video that Tim recorded with me walking on it. And then there's another trail that is marked in orange that I believe Doug is going to discuss at some point. But the purple area outlined in white is what I consider the prime search area that I'm canvassing and handing out these targets. I'm going door to door. I'm knocking on the doors. I'm interacting with the community. I'm talking with people. Some people are giving me some tips that I then relay on to the Harford County Sheriff's Office. And that red dotted line is the half-mile radius from the attack location, which usually a suspect in this type of attack is going to have some sort of safe point within the half-mile location, half-mile radius of the attack. So that's why I've targeted that neighborhood. That, and one part that I forgot to mention is there's also strong indications that the suspect moved in an easterly direction after the attack. So its proximity, the half-mile proximity, and the fact that it's in that direction is why I'm focusing on that neighborhood. I strongly believe there's somebody in that neighborhood that may very well already have realized that they know the killer and just hasn't turned them in yet.
That's super interesting. Doug, MacGregor, obviously Matt's getting detailed. He sounds like an investigator himself. How important are all these details? The fact that, believes he was headed in an eastward direction, all these little things, in your opinion, how critical are the details?
They're very critical, and Matt's done a great job. So and his map here has excellent detail, and it's really expanded on what myself and Matt started with in the beginning. But that red dotted line, that was on the original profile, the original map that I brought to STS, I think on the first episode we did about Rachel. And that it basically outlined, 500 yards or half mile from the trail. And on that show, I said that it's likely he had an anchor point within that area and that he walked to the trail. A lot of these types of crimes on trails, statistically, a lot of these offenders live even within 50 yards of the trail. But they walk to these places, they know these places. And so what Matt's done here is, that profile has now just evolved, and it's more focused now. Now that we have, it's been suggested that he's headed in an easterly direction, which makes sense. He couldn't go north or south because there were people running on the trail still. Back through the tunnel didn't quite make sense. It wasn't a rational choice even for this offender. There was nothing there. Plus, he still had to cross highways and the trail on either side. So it makes more sense. It made more sense for him to go east, and it seems like that's what happened.
Just gonna bring this down here. There's a comment here, Matt, from Jojo. I live in Harford County, and it's been like crickets about this case. Does that deject you at all? That in your own hometown, the county where this happened, it's become quiet?
I don't feel dejected. If anything, I feel as if I need to own that, because I feel like I'm the person that needs to get out there and keep talking about it. I don't feel like that's necessarily the job of the detectives. The jobs of the detectives is to hunt for this guy and find this guy. I do feel like it's important to put more details out there about the suspect. And, a while back, the Harford County Sheriff's Department did release a podcast with some additional information that I'm grateful for. But I feel like that's more on me, because I should be getting out in front of the media. And I kind of backed away from that a little bit just because I was worn down. But I'm going to try to keep pushing that. And that's also why I'm trying to give more details now to create a little bit more attention about who we're looking for. And I'd like to actually expand on that a little bit more about who we're looking for. There are a couple of different reports of seeing a man wearing these types of clothing in the woods in the weeks and even months leading up to the attack. So he clearly planned this. And there's also there's nothing to suggest that this suspect is illegal. The only thing that people really latch onto to say that he's illegal is that he's Hispanic. There's actually not one piece of evidence that suggests he's ever crossed the border, either coming into the country or leaving the country. So it's important not to remove everybody that is here legally, because that's what you're doing when you're saying he's illegal. So we need to keep our attention on anybody that fits the known information and try to leave all of the guesswork to the side, because otherwise we're going to eliminate the suspect, and we don't want to do that.
Great point. And I have seen a lot of comments, people saying, I don't think he's in the country. I do think he's illegal, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing points to that. Everything points to the fact that he's still here. I am confident that Harford County, along with LA, is going to find this guy. Here's an interesting profiling question, very specific to Tim Pappa. The bad guy from the Ring doorbell looks like a longtime hockey player. The legs say it all. Military haircut. The different military academies have hockey teams, don't they? We're obviously talking about the Ring doorbell that you can sort of see in this sketch on the right-hand side. But Tim, I don't know, has that ever crossed your mind? That's hyper specific. Just your reaction to hearing that.
No, I'm pretty sure every military service does have a hockey team. But no, Matt's point is significant. This happens a lot as a starting point, because there's all this kind of these fragments of information, and the starting point is always to kind of pull apart what is actually fact and material and what isn't. Not that you should discard it, but people often take statements that have been made or shared. They don't really know the origin of it, and it does influence investigators. It does. And people don't necessarily think about that, but it does influence people's the way they shape information, where they go with it. So I'm glad he mentioned that, because that is true. That has been a significant part of the commentary in this case, that this guy's illegal. And if we don't know, if there's nothing we can point to, we shouldn't go down that path. For sure, it's just a matter of methodology and approach and analysis. Behavioral analysis.
Doug MacGregor, to you. So we're coming up on 9 months. I'm not sure when you usually get called into cases, but where's your head realizing it's 9 months? Is it I assume time is always the enemy. The longer time goes, the tougher things get to solve. But is that necessarily the case?
Yes and no. The longer a case goes cold, just statistically, the harder or the less likely it is to be solved. However, in this case, there is significant evidence. There's DNA. So, in my opinion, it's only a matter of time until this offender is caught. I mean, once they find one person that has the same DNA profile or that is related to this offender, they're just the law enforcement is just going to do their thing, and they're going to piece the puzzle together, and they're going to find the guy eventually. Or he may do himself in and just commit another crime and get caught before then. But it's usually when I get called in, most of the time when I get called in by law enforcement, it's cold cases. I'd say about 90% of the cases I work for law enforcement are cold case, what you would consider cold cases, as opposed to active cases. Active just being recent, happening within kind of a week, and I get called in right away. So most of the time it is cold cases. But if I were to get called in now with law enforcement, I'd just be doing everything that Matt, myself, Tim have been doing, and then I would obviously have I'd be privileged to the information that law enforcement has, which would help me out further as well. Yeah.
Doug, I'm just going to have you mute because there's a little static when you're not on. I'll have you mute. Jody Johnston, to Matt, does anyone know why the LA attacker seems to leave the home without a struggle? Not that there wasn't. I hope that makes sense. Matt, have you gotten any further clarification on this?
I could give you facts, and I could also give you what my belief is. My belief is the reason he looks this way is because I personally feel that he thinks he's superior to everybody else, and so he's leaving not feeling afraid or intimidated, despite the fact that he just got into an altercation with the people in that home and he was pushed out the door. So it was not a peaceful exit. He just wasn't bothered by the fact that it wasn't a peaceful exit, and he didn't feel the need to run, because maybe Tim can talk more about the psychology of this type of person, but to me, I think that just shows the degree in which he is not a normal person, because a normal person wouldn't just stroll out the door that way after being interrupted, assaulting a young girl, getting into a tussle with other family members, and shoved out the door, especially when you're in the middle of a gang-ridden LA neighborhood.
Yeah. Tim Pappa, you can respond to that, but Rosemary Romero, what techniques are the FBI using to find and catch the suspect, if you could speak generally about that?
Yeah, generally, if a sheriff's office reaches out to the FBI for assistance, it's just going to be anywhere there's resources needed. It could be database queries. It could be DNA testing. It could be help with interviews. It could be bringing in other specialists. That's typically how the FBI would provide assistance. If the BAU is providing assistance as well, they'd also be looking for some kind of methodology they can approach to this killer. And this is kind of some of the stuff that, of course, Doug and Matt are talking about, which is bringing in statistics from past cases. What's typically the radius of a victim's home, where a victim was assaulted, an offender's home, where the body's found. Those kind of things is at least an approach that is inductive and deductive, but then also trying to consider all these artifacts in the case related to his behavior in LA. There's all kinds of explanations potentially for that, and any kind of pre and post offense behavior, or while the offense is going on. We're trying to establish a baseline, so we don't know what's normal for someone like him. Maybe he's already peaked in terms of his arousal and also his physical response to, say, a fight. We don't know, because if we don't know what happened inside that house, we don't know what's normal for him as he's walking away. But we try to keep that in mind, of course, in terms of like cognitively, emotionally, what someone's going through during a physical assault, a sexual assault, and how they're processing that. It's certainly going to influence their decision making. So when you see things like they walked out in front of a camera or they left something behind, it might be less the MO of a killer and maybe more just a reflection of their mind was in a scramble. They were in overload. They were going through a lot of things at that time, and it impacted their decision making. So we try to collect all of that, say in summary, in the aggregate, and that's where we start looking at that analysis of like what's normal in these different situations for this killer.
And you know, Matt was talking about how there's, I guess, a good likelihood that he could be in this area still. And Jerry Michael with a question to you, Tim. Do they really think the suspect stayed in the area? From a profiling perspective, how common or uncommon is it for someone to perpetrate a crime and then hang around in that same neighborhood?
I mean, generally they don't, especially if it's not somebody who actually has roots there. They generally don't. We don't know what kind of level of confidence this individual has in terms of like how well they've hidden a crime, but considering the behaviors at least we know about, that they didn't try to really hide the body, that there's potentially other evidence out there. If they already knew or they've seen since then, right? Like they're on video camera or there's DNA potentially, they might feel like they have to keep moving. So that's not typical that they would stick around. Certainly, though, there's been all kinds of cold cases, and I'm sure Doug can speak to this as well, where family members and friends knew something, or they had an inkling of something, but they didn't come forward or they just weren't interviewed about it. That stuff happens sometimes in investigations, and people sometimes do stay in areas or they come back after a little while, and people just aren't sure enough to actually feel like, is it worth coming forward? Do I really know what happened? All those kinds of considerations weigh on people, right? Even if we know the right thing is to come forward, those things weigh on people. And that's, again, why it's so important to be consistent about messaging out to people about this case while also investigators continue doing their job.
And we're going to get to, there's a few videos today that these guys have prepared. From Sheila Woodbury, wow, Matt has done an amazing job. He's going to break the case with his determination. Matt, you should be proud of your own investment and perseverance. It's amazing to hear and beautiful to see. Followed, does law enforcement believe that the suspect was known to Rachel, stalking her or something else? Matt, any other possible evidence pointing to the fact that he was, I know you mentioned that with the map, that they believe, you believe he might have been hiding in these woods, stalking out a potential victim. Anything more on that possibility?
Well, he was in those woods lurking and watching women run by. I mean, that's not even in dispute. But to this point, there is absolutely no evidence that he had any connection to Rachel whatsoever. They've found nothing. If they did find the connection, we probably would already have the suspect. But there's nothing to indicate that he was stalking Rachel specifically. I personally feel like there's a high chance that he previously saw Rachel, just because of the reports that I've heard about multiple different people seeing this person in the woods lurking, and how frequently Rachel would run on this trail. So I think just the fact that they were both on this trail quite a bit, he probably did see her, but this was just the first opportunity for him to attack somebody. And I personally feel it was just, the bad luck of the draw.
Unbelievable that with him on the ring cam that no one has identified him yet. Yet is not over yet, though. Time is no one's going anywhere, and I'm confident they're going to catch this guy. So, Doug, I've got this video I'm going to pull up here, and before we play it, just tell us what we're about to watch here, Doug MacGregor.
So this is the video that Matt and I took. This is leading off the trail eastwards towards the Liriodendron mansion. Now, this is the path that I believe the offender took to exit the trail and into the community. It's a very well used trail. It's hard to see in this video. I did enhance it a little bit by using a filter just to kind of show where the trail is, but it is a very well used trail, likely by humans and animals, and it would allow the offender a quick retreat. And also, when Matt and I were there was orange tape, and I can't confirm that law enforcement put it there, but there was orange tape at the bottom of the trail where it intersected with the Monpaw Trail, and at the top near the mansion. So it is possible that law enforcement marked that because they also think that is the escape route of the offender.
And Doug, without giving away too much of your science here, what is leading you to believe that this is how he escaped? What is it about this trail?
There's several different factors. One, it's the quickest way out, and it's accessible, it's convenient, it's fast, and there's very little surveillance. So once you get up that hill, it is a little bit of a trek up the hill, but this obviously, this guy, as we've all seen, is well built. He's athletic, but it allows him to escape surveillance. So if he continued down the Monpaw Trail either direction, he would have been seen. There would have been more witnesses. Again, I said, back through the tunnel, there was nothing there. It was very difficult going, lots of water. So this allowed him to get out of the trail area as quick as possible, into while remaining concealed. And so those are some of the reasons that I believe that he moved in this direction.
All right, let's watch we're going to watch this together here.
And like I said, this is a well-defined trail. You can see a bit of it there, and it would have allowed him to run up this hill. And on either side of this trail, there is brush that's growing in that gets very difficult to move through. But this path is roughly 200 to 300 yards, and he would have been able to get in and out of there quickly without being seen. Very few people use this trail, but it is something that if you know about this trail.
Just taking it back a touch. Did you speed up parts of this or no?
I sped up the whole thing just to make it faster for us watching. Yeah. And it gives the effect of him running as well, but it's a trail that you would have to be very familiar with the area. Like I said, the first time I was out there, we didn't walk these trails. I didn't notice these trails. I think Matt even went and mapped out some of the trails, but not all of them. Like, it's just something that you would have really you'd have to be familiar with the area to know that they're there. And there's a few obstructions, but as you can see, there's a defined trail, and it comes out to the top where the Liriodendron mansion is. And that mansion, it's Matt was explaining to me, it's county property. It's run by the county, but on the weekends, Friday, Saturday evenings, they do host private events. And as you can see, there's nobody around, and he could have exited right there into the community, the adjacent community.
Matt, I'm just curious, what's it like for you to watch this? I mean, it's kind of eerie if this is the path that he took.
Well, I've actually walked that path a couple of times now, and it may sound strange to you and your viewers, but most of the things related to Rachel's homicide in this investigation, I don't feel anything because I've completely detached my emotions from this. I think I was actually talking with Tim about this just on Monday when he was up here. It's weird that I can work on this stuff with the homicide investigation, go to the tunnel, walk these trails, and have everything just shut off. But then sometimes I hear a song on the radio and I start crying, even though I never heard this song when I was with Rachel. I don't know if Rachel ever heard that song. So it's little tiny things that will break me up. But stuff like this, I've just kind of like walled it off. I think it's a
Yeah.
survival mechanism.
I probably have
And
to
Joel,
agree.
if I may, sorry, Joel,
ahead,
if I may, up on this trail, and this goes back to what Matt said earlier, and this is kind of, after seeing this trail, it's what made me think twice about the MO and the motive here, because up on this trail, you can spend time up here, you can surveil the whole area, you can watch runners go by, and you can scout out this area for weeks. I mean, this guy knew the area, and you'll see in one of the other videos, there's no way you, in the foliage of the summer, you'd even know that tunnel existed. So this guy knew this hill, he knew these trails, he knew this tunnel. He could scout out people running without them even noticing him, and it's a perfect spot to observe potential victims and then wait for that opportune moment when there's an opportunity, when there's a victim who's a potential victim who's vulnerable, available, and to strike and to have that time to do that.
Tim Pappa, could the reverse be true also, that after committing this crime that he could have hung out up there where he could have seen possible reactions, seen people going by, things of that nature? From your profiling perspective, is that another reason he could be up there?
I mean, I think any of that's possible. A really emphasized behavior is when people leave bodies by the side of the road, meaning they want someone to find it, rather than hiding bodies. I mean, that's a choice of a killer who might do that for particular reasons. So again, I think a theory that I've maintained throughout my involvement in this, even if my involvement's been limited, is that he's probably an experienced killer who keeps changing his habits, or he's learning what works and what doesn't. And so when you look at what happened in LA, even what little we know about it, and then you look at a situation like these trails, there's a lot of explanations potentially for like why he chose this. Maybe he knew people in the house in that neighborhood, but now he's in a situation in a place he doesn't know people. But from that vantage point on those trails, ultimately a lot of this comes down to victimology, and he's looking for vulnerable and available targets or victims, right? Maybe not even people that he most desires, but they're available and vulnerable. I mean, this is probably the same experience too that Doug had with Matt, but both times we were up there last, Matt and I, it was on Monday, a weekday at 10:30 in the morning, and we had contact with at least 5 to 10 people on the trail. So again, imagine on a weekend, a summer weekend when it was still light out, there probably was so many more people. So if we were talking about someone who's already familiar with those trails that most people don't go to, then he may have had time because he's been there a lot to watch, right? And plan in that regard.
LFT Decipher here. Thank you, Matt, and the panel for your hard work. The hashtag Rachel Morin there. Back to you, Tim Pappa. I mean, are you surprised that we haven't heard of another? I mean, it's possible we have, and we just don't know that it's linked to this guy. Would you expect, I guess a better way of asking the question, a guy like this to strike again within a 9-month period? It seems like he's getting off on this.
I mean, I can't put a time limit on it, because even if you took a collection of killers through history, say the BTK killer, he had a period of time where he wasn't abducting or killing anybody, years, right? You look at the Gilgo Beach killer in Long Island, and he had a period of time where he wasn't abducting or killing anyone for years. So again, if you have a younger killer who's still learning his habits, and he's still experiencing things that arouse him or that he needs to arouse him, we can't really put a time limit on it. We don't know. We don't have that baseline to know, like, especially if he keeps potentially moving areas, there's going to be new things he needs to learn in those communities to protect himself, and also look for people if that's still a desire that's driving him.
Doug, there's a comment. I'm going to leave this one up, but there's another one from Tim Murray. Are there any security cameras around the mansion at the top of that trail? Did you check out the mansion to look at, see if there was cameras up there.
Yes, Matt and I walked the area. There is CCTV footage, from what I understand, that monitors or points at the main parking lot going in where Rachel parked, which I believe they have that footage. The overflow parking, I did not see any CCTV. Now there is lots of CCTV now. They've put in the AI cameras. The Liriodendron Mansion, I did not see any CCTV. It's not to say it's not there, but I did not see any. And then they've also obviously looked at the possibility of people in the community, their doorbell cams, and that's touch and go because it depends what camera you have and it depends what settings you put on it, the distance you put on it. Most people don't want a doorbell cam to pick up things on the road, cars, people, because then it's constantly going off during the day, sending a message to your phone. People don't want that hassle. So they usually set it for a range where someone comes up to your doorstep and then it goes off and then it can see the road, but that person has to be within, say, 5-10 yards. So I'm sure that law enforcement's looking into that kind of footage and seeing if there's anything there. But I don't know how far they've gone with that.
Rosemary Romero here to Matt. How come the FBI has not been able to link the suspect to other family members through DNA, like they linked Kohberger to his father? I'm sure they're working on some of this stuff, Matt. If you have any info that you want to share,
Sure.
or able to.
That's actually a much more difficult process than most people would probably realize. To do something like, well, it's called genetic genealogy. And to do that, they would need to take the DNA, submit it to a DNA database, and the DNA databases that it can be submitted to are severely limited, not only because Maryland restricts or controls how law enforcement would do something like this, but also a lot of these commercial companies have their policy set up to where they will not allow law enforcement to run queries against their databases. With that being said, there are some older DNA databases that law enforcement can use. They tend to have a really a substantially smaller Hispanic portion making up that database. But then if there is a hit in there, what the process would be is that they would have to then go to that person, map out their family tree, and then start doing DNA tests on different people in their family tree and see if they're moving closer to the suspect in the family tree or further away. And if they're closer to the suspect, then they need to map out the family tree more, pick a direction, go in that direction, test DNA, and they would need to rinse and repeat. But there's a lot of obstacles that they can run into as well, because these people that they approach may not want to be cooperative with law enforcement. They may say no. So that there's a lot of challenges, and it is extremely time consuming. That's probably, I probably can't give more of an answer than that.
Vanilla Rose says, interesting here that the suspect seems to have no tattoos. That in itself is unusual in younger people these days, with so many people getting tattoos. It's crazy. I'm going to slide over here so Tim, I'm just going to bring this up and have you, this is, we have another 4 videos in total, but pop this up on the screen here. What are we about to watch here, Tim?
I'm walking with Matt on the trail from an entry point from a parking lot to the trail, and he's going to walk through some of the vantage points to probably see some things similar as well to what Doug filmed with Matt's commentary top of it. But what's interesting also about this is just some of the places that Matt is pointing, which again would be a vantage point of the offender probably, but also trying to imagine what would this look like in the summer when the foliage would be thicker. And so, Matt's walking us through the same trail probably the offender was on.
Can I add some clarification?
Sure.
We're coming in from the direction of that neighborhood. This is an offshoot side section of the trail that then veers into the woods that runs parallel to where Rachel was attacked. This is not a section of the trail Rachel was traveling on when she was on the trail that day.
All right, let's take a look at this.
spending a lot of time the last few weeks walking into these woods and exploring some of the paths, trying to see this location through the eyes of that killer. I know I'm never really going to understand his mind, and I don't want to understand his mind. But if I can just see things the way that he was seeing them, I'm hoping that I'll get some insights that can lead me in the direction of this suspect, both figuratively and literally. Some of these trails I've been following feel like he was likely walking on these either the day that he killed Rachel, or when he was planning the planning phase, because he clearly planned this attack. He knew where the tunnel was, he knew where the attack location was, and because he had been lurking in these woods watching women run by, we know that he also planned where he was going to watch from. So if you look down here past these big trees, you might be able to make out this brown footbridge with these brown railings. And that bridge is 1 minute prior to the attack location. And this path to the left runs parallel to the Monpa main trail. So somewhere out here is where the suspect was lurking, likely between this path and the main trail, lurking in the bushes behind the trees, watching women run by. Unfortunately, on August 5th, shortly after 7 o'clock, the suspect in these woods wearing work boots, jeans, and a hoodie, sunglasses, saw Rachel and decided that he had an opportunity because there was nobody else on the trail. So he attacked Rachel, and he quickly brought her back to that trail, to the tunnel, and killed her. So up here, he would have privacy. You know, in April, when the vegetation's not in that much, and you look down, the trail's still pretty obscured. You can see it, but in August, he would have a pretty good cloak. So I think right about here, right about there on the Monpa Trail is where the suspect killed Rachel. So somewhere between here and there is where the suspect was lurking in the woods. And then I think after he killed Rachel, he went up this path that is not too far past where we can see, maybe another 1 minute walk tops, and it'll let you right out to that neighborhood. And that's why I'm canvassing in that neighborhood back there, because I think he killed Rachel, went up to the neighborhood on that path, and I think he went home. I think he had a place he was calling home in that neighborhood.
Wow, super powerful video right there, and it gives you such a different. It's amazing the power of video. It gives you the perspective there. Matt, for you, you know, I was picturing you almost watching the killer. That must have been. I mean, I know you say you've detached yourself from the emotion. Was that hard for you to walk there? I know you've done it a lot, but for this video,
it wasn't difficult for me to walk there. When I was walking there, it was very much in my mind that am I walking right in his footsteps? Is my foot hitting the same exact spot on the ground that he was hitting? The area back in those woods that could be difficult for me is the tunnel. The first couple times I went into the tunnel, it was with other people, and I was detached. I was distracted because I was with other people. And then one day I went back to bring flowers by myself, and I couldn't get within probably about 40 feet of that tunnel by myself because it was just me and my thoughts. So it's the tunnel that's the difficult place.
Tim Pappa, aside from being a powerful video and very intriguing to watch, what do you do with a video like this now?
I mean, when I make these videos for these families and for Matt, it's so they have something they can share. I think something that is definitely different about this video compared to other ones is maybe the other videos, yes, there are always appeals for information and raising awareness, but this one was very informational. And I think it shared a lot of information that people didn't know and information that is probably very important for those communities nearby the trail to hear, because they may not realize what they saw maybe back then several months ago was important, or somebody they've heard about, right? So it's a different kind of approach that is not as restricted as, say, law enforcement deciding what they can share or not share, or maybe they're withholding information for a particular reason in their case. But this is very different. And again, as Doug has said as well, Matt's done phenomenal
And
work
exploring some of
this.
Sorry.
Very solid.
To me, this is the eeriest part right here. Matt McMahon.
the paths.
Right as you start talking.
So I've been spending a lot of time the last few weeks walking into these woods.
You know, I didn't notice the guy at first. That's good. She's running with somebody. But Matt McMahon, how eerie or not is it? I mean, you see people running there, I guess, often. But when you see women in there running alone, do you think they have any idea what happened there?
I think in this community, definitely most of the people do know what happened. And I can kind of tell by the fact that when I'm down there checking things out, I'm also not dressed in appropriate clothing because I'm walking off the trail and I don't want to get scratched up. So I'm going down there wearing a jacket or jeans and boots, walking off the trail. And I can see the way people look at me when I'm coming off of the trail. But when I was there with Doug, and I was there for quite a number of hours, we observed quite a few women that were running by themselves, and you could see the little white, AirPod, sticking out of their ear. So that really kind of surprises me that women are still just jogging alone, wearing earbuds, which is distracting them from paying attention to their environment in a location where this happened. So if they're doing this dangerous behavior on the Mon Pod Trail, what about the rest of the country?
Yeah. When Scott Duffy was on about this, he said, leave one AirPod out or one earbud out. Vanilla Rose, has anyone thought of looking at school yearbooks from schools around the trail areas? This guy's a relatively young guy. Has that thought crossed your mind, Matt?
The thought has crossed my mind. I have not asked the sheriff's department about that, but I should follow up with that. Another profiler did recommend that I touch base with local high schools just on the off chance that he grew up here, went to LA, and then came back. At this point, we have no idea where he started. We just know that he was very comfortable in LA, where most people should not feel comfortable.
Mind of Monsters, friend of the show, buddy system, air tags, turn your location on and let someone know where you are. All great advice. This is Doug's second video. I'm going to bounce this up, and before we play it, what are we looking at here, Doug MacGregor?
So this video is Rachel's journey that day. So this starts in the parking lot. It's her jog, takes her through the trail down to the point where she was attacked, at which point it transitions to Matt walking us back to the tunnel system. Now, I've added in some sound effects into this, not for dramatic effect, but it's just so everybody watching can get a sense of what investigators will look into, and I'll explain those sound effects in more detail after.
Okay, here we go, everyone. This is the Geoprofiler's video. Here we go. Spot that Rachel Morin was attacked. If you look behind us, about a 1 minute walk to that turn is where the bridge is that goes up to the trailhead. If you go the other direction, there's a trail. 3.5 minutes walk takes you to a parking lot for a Illyrian Dendron mansion. If you look back in the other direction, it's about a 1 minute walk to the next turn. You can see where there's orange tape on the trees. That's a marking of some sort. But if you look in both directions now, you have a 1 minute walk in both directions, knowing that nobody's coming. This is exactly where Rachel was taken off the trail over to the tunnels behind us. It's April right now. The vegetation is starting to come in. It's not anywhere near as thick today as it was in August, but you already cannot see the left tunnel. The right tunnel is partially obstructed. So unless you know to look there, you're not going to see it. Even right now, I'm sure in the video, you can see that it's not easy to see looking directly at it. If I remember correctly, I think it's only about 70 yards or so from here to the tunnel where the suspect killed Rachel, finally killed Rachel. The path right now seems to be a little bit more worn down than it was before. It does make me wonder if it's because more people are coming back here. But it's not an easy path to walk if you're struggling or have somebody that's struggling because of all the rocks and the roots. I feel like I need to pay attention to where I'm walking, otherwise I'm definitely going to catch a toe. This is the Heavenly Water stream. It's the same stream that goes under the footbridge I was pointing toward earlier. Goes through both tunnels. The stream mostly goes through the right tunnel. The left tunnel barely has any water that goes through it, which is probably a secondary reason why it goes through the left tunnel, not only because of the obstruction, but because of less water. As you can see, this would be almost impossible to get somebody past this point if they're actively struggling. So I don't know how the suspect. Also stickers on both sides.
Although if he pre-planned this, he may have snipped the So more rocks back there, but clearly more rocks here as we walk into the tunnel. These white lines denote the approximate location where Rachel left us. This is actually a Bible verse that Michael put there for Rachel. We did have rain the last couple of days, and as you can see, there's barely any water coming through here.
That's it. I'm going to just freeze it there. Matt, did you say that someone left a Bible there? Is that what you said?
No, Michael Morin, Rachel's older brother, he spray painted a Bible verse for Rachel in white between the white lines, because that's where Rachel left us.
Wow. Again, video, incredibly powerful. Bayou Babe says, it's eerie but important to watch. Doug MacGregor, just take us through the video and why you constructed it this way. Sounds like a Budweiser horse at the beginning, one of the Clydesdale horses, but explain the video.
So there's two parts. So let's just start with the second part first, where we have Matt discussing where Rachel was attacked and taking us back to the tunnel. I didn't filter out any of the noise here. And that was important. You know, we have the noise of the wind. We have the noise of the birds, which you can hear when you're there. We have the creek, and obviously we have the highway. And it's, I mean, this offender, if he knew this area, he knew there was a lot of noise around that area as well. So it was muffled. You get somebody back in there and short of a piercing scream, you're not going to hear them. And as we walk back here, you can also see that once there's foliage here, you can't see that tunnel from the trail. It's completely hidden, and in August there's going to be even more. Now, when I went there first in November, I could easily see it, but in August you can't. So he knew the time of year that was going to be covered, it was going to be concealed. Once we're in the tunnel, you can hear the echo, and that's important as well. And if somebody shouts from inside that tunnel, it's easier to hear them outside because of that loud echo from the tunnel that it creates. So, you know, once she's inside that tunnel, there was likely very little noise. So that's the second part of this. And it just shows, you know, how the offender, you know, he, in my opinion, he planned out this secondary location. He knew about it. He planned it. And that's why it was the only location in the entire trail system that you could take a victim, a person, and have time and privacy with that person, with that victim. So he planned this area out.
Now, Doug, real quick, Sakya girl, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And Matt discusses this a little bit in the video. How did he get Rachel from the path to the tunnel? That seems like it'd be awfully hard to do.
Yeah, in my opinion, and Matt and I discussed this as well, I think it was I think he used some kind of, he coerced her, he threatened her. It was probably the most likely scenario. And the reason I say that is to carry somebody, dead weight, even Rachel's size. I think Matt said she was roughly 110 pounds. Picking up somebody, carrying them dead weight, or dragging them over this kind of terrain 70 yards before somebody comes into viewing distance would be very difficult. Whereas if you coerce them, threaten them, they might just walk right with you, right? And it's easy to say, well, why didn't she turn and run or scream? But that's easy to say as an outsider, somebody looking in. But if you're actually that person, and the person promises you that you'll survive this if you listen to them, or if they have a weapon, then a lot of people would go willingly. Now, if you want to go back to the first part of this video, I added in a couple sound effects there. So the birds, obviously the surrounding environment. but I added in the footsteps and the heartbeat, and that's important. I think it's just something that everybody can learn here from an investigative standpoint, is that it's been stated before that Rachel was wearing an Apple Watch. Now, we don't know the status of that watch, if law enforcement have it, if they're looking for it, what data they've retrieved off it, we're not sure. But that Apple Watch or any similar device can tell us a lot about a person. It can tell us an entire story about that person's day. It can tell us their emotions. So two specific things that they'd be looking at is the data from the steps, right? So an Apple Watch doesn't actually record your steps. It records your arm movement. So what that can do is that can tell us, one, how fast she was moving. It can tell us when she sped up, and then it can create a timeline. So if she sped up at a certain time, say to run away from somebody, it can show where that happened and at what point that happened, and they can create a timeline off that. It can also show that a victim is fighting back, because if the movement stops and all of a sudden it speeds up really quickly, that could be the arms moving to fight back. So they can use this kind of data to create a timeline. The other is the heartbeat. Now, again, an Apple Watch doesn't record your heartbeat directly. It actually records blood flow. So in your wrist, using light sensors, it records blood flow. And obviously, when our heartbeat speeds up, there's more blood flow. So same kind of thing. They can record, and like I mentioned a minute ago, it can actually record emotions, because our blood flow increases for certain emotions: excitement, surprise, fear. So they can, if you have that data, if that is available, and I don't know what kind of data they have or they could get off per watch, because obviously it depends on the settings you have, the type of watch you have. But if they can get that data, you can actually record a timeline of when her heartbeat sped up during that day, right? So maybe at a specific moment it sped up, and you can say, okay, maybe at this point in time she first saw the suspect and she became afraid, right? And then it speeds up more, and she's fearful, she's fighting. And so this is just some of the information that law enforcement investigators will look into to try and piece together what happened to a victim during their day.
And Doug, is there anything you do with the video now? I mean, and after the fact?
As Tim mentioned, it's there for the family if they'd like to use it. At this point, it's up to Matt, really. I would offer to Matt, and if he wants to reuse this video in any capacity, then he's free to do so. But it's ultimately it's for Matt and the family to use as they wish.
And Matt, do you have any more information on the Apple Watch? I mean, was she in fact? Is it confirmed that she was wearing it? Any more?
She always ran with her Apple Watch. She used that to time her runs. So she absolutely was wearing it. I mean, it's for somebody that's an avid runner like Rachel, that she's not going to go out without her Apple Watch, just like she's not going to go out without her, Brooks running shoes, So she absolutely had that. Unfortunately, she also always ran with her AirPods in with the volume all the way up.
Bundy Data says my run refit shows blood pressure spikes with the time. Like you get mad at a bad driver, spikes up, usually 117/69. Doug shaking his head, yes. And Ned Smith chiming in here, measures oxygen levels, heartbeat, all kinds of stuff. So maybe they're piecing together some sort of timeline off of this. There's one more video. This is a Tim Pappa video. And these videos have been incredibly helpful, at least to me. I'm very visual, so now I have an idea of what this all looks like. Matt, by the way, you can't help but notice there's a very busy roadway there. Has anyone looked at that possibility? I mean, is there any possibility he escaped on that road?
The road that we're on? Like in this video? I've canvassed that particular road twice now.
Yeah.
And I know that the sheriff's department has been into that neighborhood multiple times as well. I know earlier we were talking about, I think it was maybe Doug that was talking about video footage from doorbell cameras. The sheriff's department did canvass that neighborhood a couple of times to retrieve door cam videos in the fall of last year. Actually, I think it was the second one was around the 30-day mark. So anything that was usable, they likely should have received. But as far as I know, we don't have any video of the suspect after he left, after he killed Rachel.
So this is the last video.
In a neighborhood.
Tim Pappa, this is you. Tell us what we're about to watch here.
It's just a short video of Matt introducing why he's in these neighborhoods canvassing, and we made this as, again, something that Matt can use and to share with people in that community, maybe before they see him, maybe after they've seen him. It's just priming people so they're a little bit more familiar with who he is and why he's there, and hopefully that this continues to encourage people, if they hear something or they know something, that they'll share it.
Here we go in this video.
Well, I'm standing in a neighborhood about a half a mile due east of where Rachel was brutally attacked and murdered. I'm in this neighborhood because, due to the proximity of the attack and the fact that I now know that the suspect likely traveled in an easterly direction after he killed Rachel, this is the prime search area that I'm targeting to try to find clues to the suspect's identity. I've been walking around these homes, handing out flyers, talking to the community, have received some tips from the community that are relayed to the sheriff's department, and just taking notes about what I see. I do feel like answers can be found in this community. So for the next few weeks, I'm just gonna keep walking the streets and keep working it.
That's what these guys are all doing. Tim Pappa, that video, I mean, do you recommend us sharing that as well on Twitter, Instagram, and all these social media outlets?
Yeah, the more the better. I mean, ultimately that audience includes people in that neighborhood, because again, for whatever reason, people might have information, they haven't come forward yet, or maybe they need to just know who they can go to because they don't feel comfortable going to law enforcement or somebody else. But knowing Matt and connecting it to Matt and seeing a face they're familiar with, that can make a big difference in getting people over some obstacles or some hesitation to come forward, because now they've attached that story to someone in their community who continues to demonstrate that kind of commitment. That can really appeal to people. You can't just write off people if tips haven't come in yet that you're looking for. It just might take people time sometimes.
This is interesting. I never would have thought of this, but this is why the guests in the community is smarter than me. Maybe the perpetrator was in the tunnel pretending to be hurt, and she went to help him, and he attacked her there. All these are possibilities, but one thing that is definite is I personally got a much better lay of the land watching these, have a much better idea of what Rachel was up against. Tim Pappa knows what all these victims are up against. He is a certified former profiler with the FBI's BAU, otherwise known as the Behavioral Analysis Unit. He joined the FBI in 2008 as a special agent, and he pioneered the development of behavioral content creation that supports state and local cold case investigations across the country. His YouTube channel is at storytellers.design. Spring is a rebirth, and I am convinced that they're going to catch this guy. They're going to catch him soon. What are your final thoughts, Tim?
I agree with you. I think, again, what Matt is doing and what other members of the family are doing is just continuing to be consistent, trying to get that information out there. But what has really encouraged me, especially as of late, is this refocus on actual behaviors like Matt talked through on the trail. I think those are going to be pivotal in jogging people's memories and trying to tie this all together.
Someone wants to know if Rachel spoke Spanish, Matt McMahon. I don't think I've ever asked you that. Did she?
She did not, but at the same time, we shouldn't assume that the suspect only spoke Spanish.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Someone asked about the reward, $35,000 reward. This, as Matt said at the beginning, is a flyer that he made up, and he'll send me the flyer, and I will put that out on my socials. Doug MacGregor is better known as Geoprofiler. He's a forensic behavioral analyst and a consultant specializing in geographic profiling and linkage analysis for violent crime. He traveled all the way from Ottawa this past weekend to be with Matt to make these videos. Tim Pappa has traveled up from, I think he's in Virginia, to do this. I just want everyone to stop and think about that for a minute. The profiler has kids, works all the time, and is taking time out of his life to do this for someone else. It's very, very selfless. Same with Tim Pappa. Best guess, better community, but these best guests are about as good as they come. Doug MacGregor, thank you for doing that. I'm convinced they're going to catch this guy. From your perspective, what else would you want to do from a geoprofiling perspective?
I just want to keep helping as more information comes out. Anything that comes out publicly that the sheriff's office releases can help me in identifying, in focusing in my profile. So I want to help that in that way. I encourage people in the public to keep an eye out, to if they know anything, say something, obviously. But if they just keep Rachel's case alive. I see that people suggest, oh, maybe this crime's related in this one, and it could be. We have no idea. In my opinion, this offender is not criminally intelligent, but he is learning. After the assault in LA, he was caught on CCTV. He didn't wear anything to conceal himself. He learned from that, in my opinion. He moved from that to a trail system where there is no CCTV, wearing a hoodie, so he's concealing himself in the bush. So he learned, and now there's DNA. So he may learn from that, right? So although he's not criminally intelligent, he is evolving if he's still committing crimes. So just, people in the public, keep your eyes open. If you see something, say something. And if you have a tip, please report it to law enforcement.
Love Beach Bum's comment here. Great Canadian boy. Yes, he is. Doug MacGregor is a great Canadian boy. I'd love for Beach Bum to now pat you on the head, assuming it's a she. Bayou Babe here says, amazing show today. Definitely best guest. Last but certainly not least is Matthew McMahon, otherwise known as Matt McMahon. He is the father of Rachel's oldest child. That would be Faye. Matt, obviously, please tell Faye and the other children that we're trying, that we send our thoughts and doing our very, very minute, tiny part to maybe get the word out there. The floor is yours for final thoughts, Matt.
Well, thank you, Joel. I really appreciate everything that you've done to support Rachel and her children this entire time. You've been a tremendous help. And in case some people in your community don't realize, Joel is the person who connected me with Doug. So I'm extremely grateful for you in making that connection. I would like to also emphasize that law enforcement is making great strides. They're still receiving new data, combing through new data. Some of the processes they go through are time consuming to no fault of their own. It's a little bit frustrating for both me and law enforcement of how sometimes big corporations just drag their feet in handing over the data that they need to look through to try to identify who this killer is. But they are still making good progress. They have 3 detectives that are still dedicated to it in the Harford County Sheriff's Department. I know of, including the Harford County Sheriff's Department, a total of 4 law enforcement agencies that are active in the investigation. So this is far from cold. I would like to ask everybody, especially the members of the community that I'm canvassing to please do not tune out this investigation. I've run into a large number of people in that community where I'll knock on their door. They'll see who I am and what I'm doing. I'm passing out the flyer, trying to share information, and I'll get the response like, "Oh yeah, I know about that," assuming that they know everything and don't want to hear any other details. So please just don't tune out, because if we all stay tuned in, we can get this guy.
Amen to that. You heard Matt say this is far from a cold case. I am personally confident they're going to get this guy. They're going to get him soon. In no small part thanks to obviously Matt's tireless work, and Doug MacGregor and Tim Pappa, and of course the Harford County Sheriff's Office. They're working on this in LA. They are going to get this guy, not from me, just I'll post this show. Please share it to get the word out there, and appreciate everyone being here. Tomorrow we're going to switch gears and do zero true crime. Unless you ask us about it, it's going to be me, Carm, the COE, and Steve Cohen. Ask STS anything. I feel like we all need a little break from all the true crime. So that will be tomorrow afternoon, 5 p.m. Eastern time. CBS News coming to interview Carm tomorrow. It's going to be interesting. So she's getting prepped for that. And I'll post that story once it airs. But thank you all. Love you, Maryland. Love you, Ottawa, Canada. Love you, Virginia. And of course, on this day, we are thinking of Rachel and Matt and the entire family, and we will stay on top of the story and bring you the latest as we get it. And that latest is going to come soon. They're going to get this guy. See you tomorrow, 5 p.m. Guys, stick around for 1 second.